Morning, folks. Today I want to respond to the person who was unhappy because I call them Grkomani, and he was unhappy with that. But look, if anyone takes offense at that word, I sincerely apologize. But let me explain what that word actually means before you get angry with me. Grkoman, Bugoraman, Serboman actually means people who identify, Macedonians who identify as one of the other three. So that's why I use it. I don't use it in any way as an insult to the individual. I'm using it because it's strictly a political term. It means, Grkoman means a Macedonian, usually who doesn't speak any Greek, who's got no links whatsoever with Greece, no ethnic links, no linguistic, no cultural links, doesn't even hang out with Greeks, but feels that they are Greek. Now, if you are one of them and you're angry at me using it, well, please send me a message and tell me how you'd like to be referred to. Do you want me to refer to you strictly as Greeks? I'm happy to do that, because you've got to know something, folks. The funny thing is, you're not the first Grkomani of Greece. In fact, you're the third. The first non-Greeks who wanted to be Greeks were the people who founded Greece. Now, like everybody else, when I was growing up, I thought that a real Greek was someone that came from Greece but wasn't Macedonian. However, living in Athens one day, I bought this book about the history of Greece. And in that preface, the first thing that I read was, it said that the founders and heroes of modern Greece were a non-Greek lot. And I thought, what the hell is he talking about? Now, it was like a thunderbolt from the sky. I read further and I realized that the people who founded modern Greece, the first non-Greeks who wanted to be Greeks, were what we call Albanians today, what we'll call Arvaniti then. Now folks, it's really just one word, one letter, R and L. The Arvaniti were Albanian settlers in Greece who settled there just before the Turks arrived, and consequently they were still Christians, and some of them converted to Islam thanks to the Ottomans, but most not. So folks, don't take it as an insult. In fact, I lived in a community full of Grkomani, many of whom were just my relatives, but they were my beloved relatives and friends. So don't take it as an insult to you. It's a political term. It's defining a person who wants to be Greek but isn't Greek. You could call them Grecophile or wannabe Greek. So folks, they were the first. The Albanians were the first wannabe Greeks, and they founded Greece, despite not even speaking Greek, not having any connections with ancient Greek. So my friends in the Macedonian community, don't feel bad, because you were created into Greeks through terror and through the most weird education system of all, who told you you're not really what you are, you're what we're telling you what you are. So don't feel bad about it. You have a reason for being Grkomani. But the Arvaniti had no reason whatsoever. They transformed themselves into Greeks slowly. But during the First World War, for example, the Greek Navy had to issue a declaration, a law, that you could not speak Albanian anymore. That's how strong the Albanian section of the Greek community was, that they had to stop their sailors from speaking Greek. So our people, our Grkomani, you poor guys, you were bamboozled. You thought that being a Christian was actually being a Greek, and being a barbarian was being a Slav. But we're not Slavs, folks. We're Macedonians. Slav is more a linguistic term. It's not a DNA term. It's a linguistic term. Let's get one thing straight. When people talk about us being Slavs, they don't talk about anyone else being Slavs. They don't say Polish Slavs. They don't say Serbian Slavs. They don't say Russian Slavs. They say Macedonian Slavs because Macedonia is colonized. 51% is occupied by Greece, and Greece has to create a narrative which makes us somehow as being newcomers to that land. Now, even if we're Slavs, it means we've been there nearly 2,000 years. Doesn't that give us a right to identify with the name of the historical name of the land? What can we identify with if we can't identify with the historical name of the land that we've brought up with? Now, if Albanians, the first Grkomani, could become ancient Hellenes and then haven't been there for 1,000 years, why can't we, whoever we are, be Macedonians? We can't because Greece colonized us. And to justify the colonial era crimes, they are now come up with ridiculous references to a past BC history, BC. There is no nation in the world that is asked to jump through these hoops. So if you're actually a Grkoman who's slowly realizing that you've been conned all this time, you're on the right track. If you're a Grkoman who's angry, who still thinks they're a Greek, but is angry with me calling you Grkomani, sorry folks, I don't know what else to call you. What do you want me to call you? Pure Greeks? There's no such thing as a pure Greek. Now, I mentioned the first Grkomani, I've got to mention the second Grkomani, and that's the people we call Vlasi, the Vlachs, people who speak a Romanian, a Latin language, similar to Romanian. But they too, despite being hardcore ardent Hellenophiles now, they too were forced at the point of the gun. They too were told that they're not what their language and their ethnicity and their culture implies, but they're something else. Now, that is a very insidious propaganda and brutal propaganda that's created modern Greece. Not with the Albanians, they converted themselves. But the rest of modern Greece has been created through terror and through false propaganda. Now I could go on all day about the absurdity of modern Greece, but you got to Google it because you think, this Shiva, what the hell would he know? Well, look, folks, my knowledge doesn't come from here. My knowledge comes from reading, and my reading didn't start with the internet. My reading about Macedonia started when I was a 16-year-old kid. Now I'm 70. To give you an idea of how long I've been obsessed with finding out the truth about our people. And that's the difference between us and the Greeks. We Macedonians, because we're a colonized people, we've had to find out the truth. Greeks don't care about the truth. They're just Hellenes, pure Hellenes. Now, there are really ridiculous names in the Balkans, but national names, and Macedonia is not one of them. Because Macedonia is the first European national name. It's the first nation state. Now when a nation is created, it's not necessarily of one tribe. Look at the Germans, look at the French, all of them. There are a multitude of tribes. So some of those tribes might not once have been called Macedonian, they might have been called something else, but they became Macedonian through the creation of the ancient Macedonian nation. So folks, if the oldest national name of Europe is not allowed to be mentioned as a nation, why should Greece be a nation? It's a mixture, a mishmash of peoples. The only thing that made them Greek, according to them, not according to me. And this is what they said. See this? Well, Orthodox, therefore we are Greek. Because, in fact, during the Middle Ages, Europe was divided according to two different religions, Orthodoxy and Catholicism. The Orthodox were called Greeks and the Catholics were called the Latins. But the French are not Italians, the English are not Italians, not even Italians are actual Latins. Even they are a mishmash of people who've come into that part of the world. But for me, the funny names are Greece, alas, because it never existed, it had to be created. Bulgaria, a medieval kingdom of non-European people who create a kingdom, a short-lived kingdom, and they call it an empire because in that kingdom, in that empire, there were them, the Bulgarian-speaking people, there were the area of Bulgaria, that present-day Bulgaria, that they occupied, where they spoke Slavic, whatever you want to call it. They had bits of Serbia, they had bits of Albania, they had bits of Greece. So now, apparently, we can be Bulgarian, but we can't be Macedonian. So by that logic, Greeks can be Bulgarian, Serbs can be Bulgarian, anyone who was occupied by the Bulgarian Empire can be Bulgarian. The other funny name is Romania. For God's sake, how can we have a Romania on the other side of the Danube? The Romans ventured on the other side of the Danube, but they really occupied and dominated it. So people, Grkomani, or should I say, my friends and relatives who are upset at me calling them Grkomani, I apologize, but it is what it is. If you feel you're Greek and you're not born into a Greek-speaking family, you're born into an Albanian-speaking family or a Macedonian-speaking family or whatever, and you want to be Greek, you're a Grkomani. Thank you very much, folks, and please to all my Grkomani friends and relatives. You know, I grew up with you. We're close friends. Every time I come to Shepparton, we hang out. In fact, one of my most loved nieces is what would be called a Grkomani. So don't take it as an offense. Wear it proudly as a badge. Or, if you think it's offensive, come back to your roots. Come back to being who you really are and who your ancestors have been for the past 2,500 years. And that is Macedonia. Thanks very much, folks.
Bravo.